for the account that you want to run the service as. Now what should happen is I should get presented a dialog that's going to allow me to log in using the credentials for my VSO account. And I'm going to go ahead and do that here real quick. And this has to be someone who is in the groups that we just talked about. I have to have the permissions to be able to add an agent to that pool. And when this is done, I'll be able to go back inside of Visual Studio. So it says everything is running as expected. For to come back here and refresh this guy, we can see that we already have that agent appearing. And as you'll notice, the list of capabilities of this machine are much, much longer than they were before. And I can add my own custom tools here. I could add third-party tools that I need for my particular build. And I would then be able to use this build agent whenever I want to run a build.
So those system capabilities, I'm assuming that there's some the agent auto kind of detects what's installed after you install things?
It does. There's logic there that can actually walk through, and it looks for things like environment variable that are set. So if I wanted to add Wix, which is a Windows XML installer tool set, I could go and install the tools necessary. I could do one of two things. I could either come here and add the capability manually by simply typing in whatever it is that I want and the value, or I could go inside of the Windows machine, actually add an environment variable called Wix, and it would automatically show up in my system capabilities. Great question. And then what I do with these capabilities is I match them against my build definition. So if we go back again, and let's look very quickly at the anatomy of this guy. And if we go to the general, we have all of these demands. So you'll see VS Test, Visual Studio, and MS Build. And that's going to correlate over here to some of our capabilities of Visual Studios on here, VS Test is on here as well. So that's it. It's pretty simple to set up a build agent, and now I will have much quicker queue times. I will have whatever tools I need available to me, and I can spin up machines in Azure like I did here and just build out my entire app pool. My build pool.
So what if I wanted to use build agents on-prem? Would it matter? The
process is exactly the same. Very good question. I spin mine up in Azure because they're cheap and they're easy and they're quick, and it's access that I have as an MSDN subscriber. I have access to those VMs and those Azure resources anyway, so I might as well use them. But if I needed to have that machine on premise because it needs to be close to some resources behind my firewall or on my domain, I would simply go through this exact same process on that machine, and then I'd be able to have that be part of my pool as well.
So you could have then, one pool that has a mix of on-prem and cloud-based machines. Or
absolutely.
You could even have a pool that's like, this is the uber-fast SSD 16-core build pool machine thing.
Absolutely.
Whatever you want to do.
And if you wanted to be able to choose based on your build which agent it uses, you could add your own capabilities and put cloud, for example, as a capability, and then put on-prem as another capability, and then use that as a demand on your build. So that you could say, I always want this particular build definition to go to the cloud. So I'm going to put a demand that it use the cloud capability, and then on our agent, we simply say you have a cloud capability, and it'll always use it for you. So you can do a lot of cool stuff with that.
A lot of power. So
absolutely.
Even if you are using Visual Studio Online, that doesn't mean you can't use your own on-prem agents.
Absolutely.
Do all your builds locally, because I know some people feel happy goodness when they are like, oh, well, my code and all my builds are right here on the LAN, and I'm happy. And so that's one way to do it.
That's exactly a way to do it. Very good.
All right. Well, I think now we're going to switch to Linux, the open source build agent that we have here. And so what I've done is I've already got an existing pool here named Ubuntu Agents. Not surprisingly, running Ubuntu Linux. We have one that's running, but what I want to do is walk you through how do you create a new agent and add that to the pool. So what I've done is I have created a brand new, fresh Ubuntu 14.04 VM in Azure, and I've only done two commands. The first one is this big long URL here to install the latest version of Node. And this one's really important, and I'll explain why later. And this one's actually, at least at the time of this recording, is actually not documented that you have to do this. So an important one here that I'll leave up on the screen for you to check out. The next one that I did is did an install of Node.js. So even though that installs the latest package of Node, you still got to go and install Node.js. Now, if you look at the instructions that are up there, it's going to tell you to just install Node.js. And if you do that, you're going to run into some problems later on, at least in my experience here. You also need to have npm, the Node Package Management, installed on this VM. So after that, though, we can take a look and see what's our version of Node.js. We can take a look and see what's my version of npm. And from here, now we're ready to do the agent install. So what I'm going to do is, is type sudo npm install VSO agent installer -g. Now what's going to happen is it's going to pull down the agent. So Donovan went out there and he actually clicked and said download. Well, that's our command, our equivalent command on Linux to just download it, and that's it as far as the download goes. Now what we want to do is we have to change some permissions just because of the way in which this works. So we're going to do a dash, and why don't I clear just so it's a little bit up top for you folks here. We're going to do sudo chown -r $user, and this is documented up there. It gives the appropriate permissions to the package manager for what we need to do next. Okay, so we've executed that. Now, the way that the agents work here, or the open source agent works, is that you can create agents for however many agents you want to run on the same machine, you can. And it's just you're gonna put that into its directory. So we're gonna make a directory and we're gonna call that VSO agent. We'll just leave it that. And then we're gonna change directory into VSO agent. And then we're gonna do the VSO agent installer. And there we go. So it actually installed the agent into that directory. That's done. And now what we have to do, just like Donovan did in the Windows one, we still have to do a configuration, right? So the agent is now installed, but we need to get it configured. It's just out there in no man's land, and the agent's installed, but it's got to be configured to VSO. So we're going to type node agent VSO agent, and now it's going to say, what's your username? And this is that, per the earlier module, the alternate credential authentication mechanism. So you'd put that secondary username and that password in there. And then I'm going to type in my URL. The agent name, I'm going to hit enter and just leave it the same name as the VM, but you could call that whatever you wanted. The agent pool name, and I want to make sure I get this right, I'm going to call it Ubuntu Agents. Because if you look here, right, we have this friendly little Ubuntu agent. Whoa, wow, got a little crazy there on the drawing. Ubuntu Agents. So let's go back and let's call it Ubuntu Agents. All right. Yep. Okay. So there we go. Agent started. Now that's it. Now the agent today actually, at least as at the time of this recording, has to be run interactively. Unfortunately, the agent is not as a service yet. So if you hit Control-C or you close your PuTTY window out or you reboot your VM, you're going to actually have to go back in and type that same command in that directory, node agent /VSO agent. So just something to be aware of, at least at the time of this recording, that's the way it works. So let's now, I guess, give you kind of an explanation or see it in action, right? What actually happens? How can I connect this to an actual build? So if I go over to this build definition that I have, I'm going to first, I guess, take out the agent, because I know there's some other special things that I had installed, like Java and some other things. So I'm going to remove this from the pool. But you can see here, right, that we've actually, that's the one that I just installed. So the 14042 is now green and it's up there. I'm going to take it out of the pool because I don't want this particular build to go there. Again, because I've got Java and a bunch of other stuff installed here to make my build work. So I'm going to then just queue the build. Again, it's going to hit the queue of the Ubuntu agents. We're going to click OK. And this is now actually running on this guy here. So what you're going to see is this guy pick it up, and it's going to start. See, it's at the very bottom here. Let's see if we can zoom in a little bit. It's running the job build. And so this one's actually executing. This one's sitting there waiting because we removed it from the pool. And if we go back up here, you can see that the tasks are actually running on that VM. So there, we've got Gradle tasks running, building a Java application. This happens to be our Parts Unlimited MRP app. And it's running through there. So as you can see, this is the way to make those things connect up. I've got an existing build that I know completed, so you don't have to wait there for the whole thing to finish. But as you can see, we published artifacts.